610 KONA, 441, almost 442, continuing now with 4 o'clock talk. 15 days from the election, which is mostly centered on city races, city council races in our communities around here, Pasco among them. And happy to have with us today here in the studio, a candidate for the Pasco City Council for position 5. His name is John Talbott. He is challenging the incumbent, Rebecca Francic. And, John, thank you so much for being with us. Good to see you again.
My pleasure, Jeff. Good to be here.
And you are seeking city council, and city government is not something unknown to you. You served for a time in a different part of your life as the mayor of the city of Spokane. So you've
true.
Seen it from a couple of different angles.
Oh, yeah. Well, that was a weak mayor form of government, so I didn't have any authority, and the city manager let me know that right away. He says, you don't talk to anybody in my government unless I'm there or you get my permission. And that was the wrong thing to say. Hey, we represent the people. We should be able to go into government and ask questions, talk to them, ask for information. And city managers, there's two kinds. One that works as part of the team, and then there's one that says, I run this show, and that's the way it's going to be. You stay out.
Now, as somebody who lives in Pasco, you review the landscape, and you decide that you'd like to be involved in city government here. What is it that you see that motivates you to want to be a part of the city council?
Oh, quite frankly, in the towns that I've been in, I've never seen a population that was so angry with the way the city manager runs everything. He runs the council. I talk to business people. I walk around and visit with them. They don't even want to go into City Hall and do business. It's so totally unfriendly. To listen, Mr. Crutchfield, we got the safest town in the state of Washington. Crime rate is down. I beg your pardon, sir. Crime rate has been rising, but the population's been rising more. So depending on how you look at it, crime is down, but you're wrong. And I have that from relatively reliable sources. I don't see much in the way of economic development in Pasco. You pick up the Herald and listen to the radio, it's all happening on the other side of the river. Yet Pasco's got the best transportation system. It's got good recreational areas that haven't been developed and made to look like recreational areas. We build warehouses right next to the river. That doesn't make good sense. We have an airport. It's the regional airport. It's ours. And we don't see any promotionals nationally, Northwestern region, that talk about the value of Pasco as a place to live and a place to grow jobs and a place of community. We just don't see it. You've
got a port and you've got a chamber of commerce that I'm sure a lot of people would say, well, that's kind of their deal. What role do you think the city council can play in something like that?
Well, the city council ought to be encouraging the chamber to get out there and advertise us, but some of the complaints that I just said that the business community has with regard to the city of Pasco comes from that body of people. They don't want to go down there and do anything. It's a very unfriendly environment. And I had some people that wanted to work with me on my campaign. They made a commitment to do it. And they said, we got a little things going with the city planning department now. And quite frankly, we can't be a part of your campaign. We'll be given the hard road to go because of it. There's that kind of intimidation. The thing with the donut hole. The city manager and a number of the council saying, we've got all the waivers we need to go for a vote, and we got the votes. We got over 60% of the assessed value. But when you look at the waivers that they've got, they're a hodgepodge of signed documents, signed books, and they don't have legal standing. I doubt seriously whether they have the necessary waivers to pull it off. And then typically when you annex, It costs the city money to annex. The tax revenue isn't enough to cover for the additional police, isn't enough to cover for the additional infrastructure requirements. But it's a run for tax revenue. That's all it is. And can you imagine living there to find out the city has already zoned your property away from your use? It just doesn't make good sense. Whether it happens or not, it's immaterial, but it's zoned already, and you didn't get to participate.
It sounds like you're not in favor of annexing this affected property. Is that a fair statement?
Well, I'm not in favor of the way they're going about it. I think the people that are involved ought to be participants in the whole thing. And if they don't want it, hey, no big deal. Don't want it. But the way the city is going about it and the fire district is going about it, well, we're just going to tell them. You want to find some angry people, go into the donut hole and talk. Cities ought to be about bringing people together, not tearing them apart. And we're not doing that. We're simply not doing that.
I can tell this is something you feel pretty strongly about. You feel pretty passionate about it. You're pretty fired up about it.
Well, yeah, that's I'm 78 years old. And I have a passion, and it's a long-time passion of volunteering in my community. And I just volunteered for a Pasco High School project that's coming up that'll take a week. I think that we need more adults involved with kids as mentors, in the drug programs as volunteers. We need to help to focus the energy of families on solving the problems, because that's where everything begins, with the family. And I don't hear us celebrating families. I don't hear us celebrating successful non-government programs. If we're going to give bonuses to people, we ought to give bonuses to successful families, not to city management. It just doesn't wash.
Your experience is almost 30 years in the United States Air Force, first as an enlisted man, and then ultimately retired as a colonel in the United States Air Force. How was that experience, do you think? How would that come to bear? How would that be of benefit to you as a member of the city council here?
Well, one of the things that I found, that to be successful in any job, you have to be a team player. You got to be a part of a team. And the team has to have a vision. And everybody is collectively moving in that direction. That's not the case with Pasco city government. The city manager has a vision, and everybody better get in line behind it, because without that, it's not going to happen. And I'm of a different persuasion. I work for the people, and the people can define their vision to me, and I will go out to help build that and support it and discuss it and move it forward. One person can't do it. It's all about team building, and that's what I found in the service. I was successful. It wasn't because of me I was successful. It was the team that we were moving forward with, and everybody had a role to play. And they would tell me, hey, this is the way we need to go, boss. Go or stop these people from giving us a bad time. And that was my role. I helped focus the energy, and it worked. Worked very good.
4:50 right now. We're visiting with John Talbott. He is a candidate for the position 5 slot on the Pasco City Council. He is challenging the incumbent, Rebecca Francic. 4:50, we're going to take a break. We'll continue our conversation with Mr. Talbott in just a moment on 4 O'Clock Talk on 610 KONA. 610 KONA, 454, 57 degrees, continuing now with 4 O'Clock Talk, talking to John Talbott. Mr. Talbott is council candidate for position 5 on the Pasco City Council. He is challenging the incumbent, Rebecca Francic. And we mentioned earlier you did serve for a period of time as the mayor of Spokane. What lessons did you learn there that you think would be helpful to you sitting on a city council in a smaller but growing community?
The big lesson I learned there, and I knew it going in, you've heard this term shadow government thing, and I've always heard the term shadow government, but I never really knew who they were because I was not involved enough to need to get to know those people. When I got to be mayor of the city of Spokane, I found out real quick who the shadow government was. I was threatened by them. I was called a civic terrorist by the newspaper a number of times in editorials. The Good Old Boy Network, I went out and I'd talk to loan officers at banks about the viability of a proposal that was going on, and they would tell me right up to my face whether it was good or bad. If they said it was bad, I say, would you come and talk to the city council? They said, we'd lose our job. It's that kind of power that a shadow government has, just like this friend of mine who said whenever he needs to get something done in the city, he goes straight to the city manager. Well, there's shadow government. There's a guy that has leverage, and that's not appropriate in the governance of a city. I'm sorry.
Something that strikes me is if you should be elected on the 8th, you will have to work with a city manager of whom you're quite critical of. How would that? What do you think the dynamic of that kind of arrangement would be? As you take your seat on the council and have to work with a manager whose performance you're not pleased with?
It's no problem at all. I am elected and represent the people of the city. That's my job, to represent them. The city council hires the city manager, and he works for the city manager, for the council. As long as he understands that he works for us, we get along fine. I've been down to city council meetings, and a citizen will come up and ask a question of the mayor, and the mayor will look over at the city manager, and the city manager will nod yes or no. And it's just simply not unusual. He runs a good number of the city council members. Just like this friend of mine that I talked to you about. He was very, very proud of the fact that of his relationship with Mr. Crutchfield and what a fine city manager he is. And he has selected certain and supported certain people for mayor, for city council. And interestingly enough, those people have a record of doing whatever Crutchfield says. Shadow government in place. I just don't believe that. It's not the way we're supposed to do it. Give me another example, and I was taken to task by saying this, that I felt that the council really didn't represent the people. And I still feel that. There are some exceptions. And one of the council members took me to task for saying that, Mr. Al Yenny. And he was right. I shouldn't have said that about him. But there are others. Do you remember the Planned Parenthood issue on the other side of the river? The majority of the people that testified at the Planning Commission were opposed to that. They didn't want it to happen. When it went before the city council, it was all but unanimous in favor of allowing it. Now, is that representing the people? Is that does that tell the right story? And then I found out later that my opponent wrote the policy for that issue in favor of it, despite what her constituency said when they participated in it. Now, what should a council member do when there's that kind of passion around regarding an issue? Some would say, well, we didn't want to be sued. Well, bring them on. Just bring them on. We represent the people.
John Talbott is a council candidate in Pasco running for position 5. Again, he's challenging the incumbent, Rebecca Francic. Mr. Talbott, I thank you for your time today, sir.
It's been a pleasure. Enjoy it every time.